Alrighty, welcome to week 3 in CIT93 JavaScript. In the time that I'm recording this, the Monday, the holiday of week 2, I am pretty much making my goal. I said, and by the way, if you're not seeing some of my posts, make sure if this is where I post a couple times a week. Here, when you come into the homepage, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the class, and this is the one where I posted, hey, holiday is on Monday, everything gets moved, and also I'm going to be traveling. And by the way, just know that you can click into these to see the entire thing, okay? And I think you're getting notices. As a matter of fact, that could be one of the things you tell me. I'm not completely sure. I'm using this in a new way this year. Okay, so I'm telling you that just to say it is good to just brief. If there's something in here, you're like, oh, you know what, I want to know about this, but only 3 of the latest ones will show up. Okay, let's take a look at week 3. I'm going to have 2 videos for the attendance. First, I'm just going to go over a few things in the course. At this point, I haven't published the course. But I want to talk about something I brought up last week, and then we're going to get into the second video where we actually look at some starter code that we're going to do. So the first thing is, last week I mentioned about disabling AI inside of your VS Code, and I had started a process of already creating some configuration files for you to put on VS Code, to put on inside your VS Code in CodeSpace. And I realized, because this course uses, some students are using CodeSpace, some students use them locally. This is also true for my database class. More of them are using CodeSpace. But here's really what I want you to understand, and I think we can do this a little simpler than the approach I was taking, mostly because I realized in the process of doing this, and again, this is where AI is very helpful to me, is having an ongoing dialogue to understand if I make these changes, what happens. And so instead of giving you that full configuration, I just want to talk about today what I generally recommend, and more important than maybe the actual doing or not going through the actual configuration, although I will show you in the UI, the user interface, what to do, is understanding why it's important. Because when you come in for technical interviews, the environment you're going to have is going to be without any AI in it. And so if you're coding in an AI integrated environment, because things like GitHub, and in this case CodeSpace, and even when you're doing it local, is trying to inject its product into your experience. Now, I'm not here to make judgment calls on whether that's a good thing, but for this type of class, you don't want that. Now, you will see good uses of AI. In my opinion, we're going to see one this week in attendance that you'll do next. But really what I want you to understand is why I'm now talking about this for the second week. And I am going to bring up my CodeSpace just to go over the thing I talked about last week, but also the second thing that I didn't. But, because it can't, I don't recommend activating CodeSpace or any other AI in your VS Code. And if you see this, I recommend coming over here, and where it says show view by default is clicking that off and then hitting X. And now when you do that, it will not show up the next time you do it. But the thing I didn't show was down here on terminal. Now for this class, terminal is not as much of an issue, because there we're doing git commands, git add to add it to staging, git commit to commit that, and git push to push it. But it's still helpful just to come in here, because notice as soon as, and let me just drop the terminal to show here, right, terminal, new terminal, as soon as you bring up a new terminal, it brings up this interface. So I recommend clicking the don't show. Okay, and what that means, and to me, it makes my environment less busy, and I like that. But more importantly for you, I just want you to understand, don't integrate AI tools into your environment, okay? Not a good idea, because it's ultimately in when you come in, not the way you're going to see it. Now, in this case, I'm also going to come down here. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead. There's no VS Code or GitHub changes I have to do. This is just a configuration that it's done kind of in the background. I'm going to go ahead and stop that code space, and that relates to the whole idea of the limitation of the 120 hours. Again, upgrade. The VS Code has an upgrade path for students to go to 180. I believe that's right. So anyway, I'm stopping that. Okay, so that was the thing I wanted to say there, is that, just disable that stuff so that you're not leaning too hard, because ultimately you won't be able to use it in an important part of the class. All right, so we have gotten an update for Brianna's hours, and you can also see the schedule in Simple Syllabus, but also when you come into the course, when you come down to Brianna, we were able to get her schedule. Now, there will be some changes. She sends out messages. You're welcome to connect with her. Depending on her schedule will depend on her response time. Right, and I've actually in Simple Syllabus also given you my communications, like typically, and I said this in the announcement, like over the weekend I'm typically not around, and if I do have time, I'll check, but typically just know that, I work a Monday through Friday regular hours, not quite, but whatever, but just know there is a communications plan in there. Okay, let me come back down to 3 here. Now notice I haven't published 3. I will do that as soon as I'm done today. Okay, so the other thing is, and some of you, when I was reading some of your content around week 1 and week 2 so far, because at this point that's what I've seen all of week 1 and a little bit of week 2. Some of you are getting a great head start. This is something I will say in a minute as far as working ahead and the benefits of it. But some of you have expressed like, hey, I'd like to learn a little more HTML and CSS. And what I would say to you, and I'm just going to give you the warning, this is a shameless plug for my courses, but in this semester in the back 9, so there's courses that are offered in the short term. Now you're taking a full 18-week course, but classes taught in the beginning 9 week of the semester may be a 3-unit class or possibly a 4-unit class that are offered in a compressed mode. For this semester, there's actually going to be, I just saw an error in here, so I'll fix it as I'm talking about it. There is actually going to be 2 classes of mine that are offered, and this is a little unusual for this semester. But it will be CIT82, which is Introduction to Web Development, which is a 3-unit class, and CIT85, which is just HTML and CSS. And what I would say to you is, even if this is not your career, adding to your skill set is a good idea. So consider those. Reach out if you have any questions. Okay, now the benefit of working ahead. I talked about this already, but I'm going to bring it back around because now we can be more specific. So working ahead, it's really important that you see the feedback that I'm offering you, okay? And you act upon that before the due date. Several of you got this, you saw my feedback, and you were able to fix it before the due date. Now, once the due date passes, that work is now late. And fixing it, although really good, and you should, it's a good idea to fix things, okay? But the benefit is now somewhat, it's not as big of a benefit because now you're going to get late points removed plus whatever you missed. And you might think, well, I'll just fix that thing and get all the points back. And the answer is fixing that is a timely issue. Now, make sure you go into your grades. Okay, and in grades, I think, let me see in this course, I think I may have I don't think I've added anything, but you should, when you come into grades, I don't have any, but over here, right, you will see the little icons, and those icons are actually my feedback. So that's why it's really important. I'm going to leave student view right now because that is where you see where I've given you feedback on your specific submission, and submitting early allows you to fix it. Once the due date passes, you can still fix it, but then late points apply. Okay? So just know that the benefit of working ahead is a real thing. And the advice, as many of you heard, is a really good thing to attempt. And I get that sometimes it just doesn't work. Like here I am getting out things on my time schedule that's a little behind where I like to be. Sometimes I just got to get it done. Okay, so this week, and this leads into this topic. So this week, what we're going to have is 2 code alongs. I give you the optional break, understand it. Now, because this week we don't have a holiday like we did last week, right? This optional break is your first code along is due Monday night. Right? Again, let's say you're working over the weekend, when I wake up Monday, I then review the work that you've done and give you any feedback that you may have on it. And then if you want to have an extra 24 hours, then you have at least got that first one done and you can do the next one within the next 24 hours. And this is what that optional break shows. Again, this one's a little different. Ooh, I got to fix that because it is a regular week. And then we have the AI checkpoint, which in this case, I didn't record another video, but the content is related to what you're learning. Okay, so if you're unsure of how this works, or if you had any challenges, by this point I've seen, I think, at least 4 submissions. Nobody's noted that they've had any challenges with those, meaning maybe something, it seems like it's working, but again, I won't know until more students hit it. But there is, my point about this is there's no new video for the attendance or for the AI checkpoint. But of course, for the last checkpoint with the U code, which I've seen a couple students now already submit their week 2 ahead, which is awesome because we're now in the RL in the time I'm recording this, just coming into week 2. So several students are already at the end, which is really helpful, really, really helpful to them and to me. So if there's something that I forgot in there, they give me the heads up. So not only does it benefit them, it benefits other students in the class. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, let me see if there's anything else in here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to stop this one, and now we're going to pick up the actual work that we're going to do for this attendance post. All right, look for the next one.